Okay, I think that's us ready to go. So first of all, welcome to Barclays Scotland campus. It's our pleasure to host this event together with CBI tonight on Power of Networks. We do have 4 panelists with us. They are in Glasgow room and also in the Edinburgh room. Before we hand over to our panelist and Laura herself from CBI, I will just quickly do a few housekeeping, the boring stuff, but the important stuff. So there is no fire alarm drill tonight planned. If you do hear a fire alarm, that's a real fire alarm. And given we only have like maybe 40 odd people in the room, so you can just all follow me and we will take you through the fire exit. There's only 1 floor, so it's not too bad. Apart from that, as I mentioned, there will be a networking event after the panel session. If you need bathroom at any point of time, please take your visitor pass with you because you won't be able to get back in if you don't take that. The bathroom is, if you come out of this door here, you turn left and turn left again, you see the door, go through the door, the bathroom is there. I think that's all the kind of housekeeping logistics we needed. For those people who are on the Zoom call, please be aware this session is recorded. So if you do not want to be recorded, like please, you can turn your camera off. But for the rest of us in Glasgow room, it's okay because the camera will be recording our panelists. There will be QA session after the panel sessions as well. So after all that, now hand over to Laura from CBI.
Amazing, thanks, Zhou. And thanks everyone for joining here today. Lovely to have you all either online or over on the Barclays campus in Glasgow today. So this event is brought to you by the Scotland Members Network of the Chartered Bankers Institute. And just in case anyone isn't a member of the Chartered Bankers Institute, I'll just walk through a little bit about who we are and what we're about. So the Chartered Bankers Institute is a global professional body of education for bankers, and it's based in the UK. They offer things like professional qualifications, events, membership, and much more, which can all be found online on their website. Next year marks 150 years of the Institute, and due to this, they've launched the 2025 Foundation. And in recognition of International Women's Day, which takes place this Friday, and is why we're having this event today, the Institute has introduced a new 4-part series with a new episode launched every day, and that started yesterday. And these are interviews held between young women of the 2025 Foundation and a series of 4 established women in banking, in which they discuss what it's like to be a woman in banking, the highs and lows of their career, and how important this year's theme of Inspire Inclusion for International Women's Day really is. These can be found on the Institute's YouTube page, which is @Chartered Banker. For anyone that's interested, please do go check those out. As I mentioned, today's event is hosted though by the Scotland Members Network of the Institute. And what we do is we bring together professionals across Scotland. Committee members are in attendance both here in Edinburgh and in Glasgow, so please do go find them in the room, reach out if you want to hear more, or please add myself or any of us on LinkedIn. Sorry guys, volunteering you there as well. And please do message us to find out more. Without further ado though, let's hear more about the power of networks. So I'll be your Edinburgh host for today. I'm Laura. I currently work at Tesco Bank. And there I'm a current committee member of the Women at Tesco Bank network, as well as a committee member of the Scotland Members Network of the Chartered Bankers Institute. Previously, I worked at NatWest, where I was involved with the Women in Technology Network, and I'm also involved in the Scottish Financial Enterprise Gender Equality Network. Easy to say. So hopefully a wide variety of experience with networks, as has our lovely panelists. And Carol, I'll hand to you.
So the power of networks, I'm Carol Anderson and I'm the Director of Branch Banking with TSB. So I'm in my 47th year of banking. That's a bit scary to say that. But the power of networks, it's a huge support that I think particularly when you're early on in your career, you can get so much benefit from, and it widens your reach and it helps you get supporters and have a place to go if you may be feeling unsure about something or you just want a bit more guidance. And it's a bit nerve-wracking too. I can remember in my younger days thinking about networking, I was absolutely terrified. How do you make a conversation? How do you build a connection? Walking into a room and you maybe don't know anybody. But I would encourage everybody to think about, well, everyone's been in that situation and nobody is in a network to exclude people. A network by its very meaning is about including and embracing new people and helping people in the journey. And I've found throughout my career, both in informal networks where you tend to bond because you've got a common interest in informal ones, and there's a natural draw to it, versus the more formal ones that you're there for a reason, and you're either there giving or you're there taking, or you're doing a bit of both. So you may be going along because you've got an experience in a certain topic. So be it technology or it could be career breaks, it could be whatever it is. You're going along to embrace that topic and share with others. But I think being part of a network just gives you that sense of belonging and purpose. And I would recommend them to everybody. But be brave, get yourself involved, ask. Don't sit back and wait for someone to ask you, because that might not happen because they might not think you're interested. Be brave and go forward.
Thanks, Carol. And Katherine, how about yourself?
I'm Kat Graham, so I work at NatWest Group. I'm also involved in the college sector and in further and higher education, and I play a role on the board here at the Chartered Banker Institute. And I would absolutely agree with everything that you've said, Carol. I greatly benefited from being involved in a whole plethora of different networks throughout my career. And I think there's something really important about just creating that connection with others, having those conversations with a really clear outcome and objective in mind.
Amazing. Thanks for that. Zhou, over to yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura. So my name is Zhou. I am the co-founder and a co-chair of Women in Technology at Barclays, Scotland, together with Hannah, she's sitting there. Yeah, so like in terms of our Women in Tech, we call it WIT. It is a supporting network and a community for our colleagues in Glasgow as well as the external communities. We are mainly looking at to address the gender imbalance in technology, not just for the current talent pipelines, we're also looking into the future talent pipelines. So we work very closely with school kids to encourage girls into coding, into computing science. We work with kids as young as P5, so it's 10 years above. We also like very much focusing of collaborating with the other networks like CBI, like SMN, Scottish Member Network, SMN, that's right, isn't it? Yeah, I got that right. So myself, I was seconded to CBI as their committee member last year, and personally saw a lot of the very inspirational initiatives they are rolling out. And that's where I see the benefit of the power of a network. So again, like we've got some other like friends or people we only knew from last week, the other organizations, networks, all here tonight as well. So I think it's really just looking at how we are leveraging the networks we have available to really maximize that benefits and that value we can bring to our own community and make it a platform for people to really utilize, sharing knowledge as well as inspiring their career choices. So that's something that we are all very passionate about, and I'm sure like you'll find all of that common theme and that voice from tonight's session as well. I'm going to hand over to Lauren.
Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Robb. I work at Tesco Bank as a senior analytics specialist, but I'm also one of the chairs of the Women at Tesco Bank network. I've been at Tesco Bank for about 2 years, and that inspired me to get really involved with networks. So beyond that, I'm also part of an alumni network for my master's degree, but also Women in Banking and Finance. So I have a lot of experience in networks and think very highly of them. So I'm glad to be on the panel tonight.
Hello, I'm Jamie McMillan. You're probably wondering why I'm here. So I'm not in a women network, unfortunately. However, I am in the BMRG, so that is the Barclays Military Resource Group. Just pretend resource group is network. It's easier that way. So I left the British Army about 4 years ago in 2019 and joined Barclays through an internship. At that point, there was a network up here, but it wasn't as mature as what it is now. And hopefully some of the stuff I can say tonight can explain how the power of networks for me has helped me get to where I am and helped our members as well. Maybe you can use that as some context, hopefully.
Amazing, thanks everyone. So we'll be coming to the audience Q&A in just a little bit. We'll just be asking our speakers a few questions first, so please get those thinking caps on. If you're dialing in today, please use the Q&A function and I'll be monitoring that. Or if you're over in Glasgow, please do raise your hand and Zhou will make sure that your question is asked and answered over in Glasgow. So first question on our International Women's Day theme is, how do networks help representation and to inspire inclusion? Who wants to get me started?
So I'll kick off. One of the first networks I was involved in was around securing women progressing in business, because at that time I was part of many networks where I would be the only woman in that group. So we had to create a voice and engage others to join us and talk about what were the barriers, what was stopping us moving forward, how do we create that pathway. So I think that was the start of the gender balance when we're involved in things like that. And then with diversity and inclusion, it's expanded and we've learned from the gender balance one, and we've been able to build on that. And I think we've all got a responsibility, haven't we, to make sure, whether it's a network, whether it's when we're looking at development and progression, it's representative of the customers we serve, the people we know, the networks we're part of. And if everybody's got a voice and you've got a diverse voice, you get a much better balance and you move forward quicker and more sustainable.
Thanks for that, Carol.
I can probably add to that as well. So as a women's network, I think inclusion networks has inclusion. But what that does is it brings about visibility for women in the business. So it lets you stand up and get opportunities that you might not have had otherwise. It creates a community that you can lean on and draw resources from. But it also creates a plethora of development opportunities that are kind of geared toward issues that you may face. For example, imposter syndrome is always cited as something that women really suffer with. And in our network, we do a lot of work around imposter syndrome and how you can overcome that. Now, that doesn't mean it's only for women. We encourage, allyship and allies to join us in that as well. But it creates that resource for people to come and be more of themselves and thrive in business.
I'll try to add some extra context that will hopefully be 50% as good as you said there. So it's probably quite interesting that if you join from the military into a new career, I never expected to be in the banking industry and finance. I joined the army and expected to be there forever. After 9 years left and wondered what I would do and ended up here. I came through as one of 8 candidates that year through the internship into an environment where I didn't really know anybody. Nobody, none of my friends or family are from the financial sector. So it was quite welcoming to understand and find small network at that point of about 30 people in Scotland. Kind of the Barclays size at that point was maybe about 2,500 people. Something that's commented on quite often from the military community would be a sense of camaraderie, companionship and friendship you get from that. And I got to experience that and find that during that internship and then beyond. And I learned, just for clarity, when you do the internship, the way the Barclays do it, there is no job. You're on a 12-week job hunting exercise. So the best way to find that job is the network. So the power of networking is essentially how I got a job. That's how I've got any other job since, if I'm being honest. It's not brains. I'm finding those people who had that knowledge, if that was someone who's working in private bank, if that was an engineer or a project manager or something, they always give you a little gem that you can use that will stand you good. And an interesting point I picked up on quite quickly. So I'm now the co-chair of that network, and I'm the co-chair of the UK network. I have been for Scotland for about the last 18 months. When I took over, it was 50 people, it's now 120 in Scotland. We have 7 work streams of things happening and people doing things. An extracurricular activity to throw themselves at, lead on, and really highlight the skills that they've got off the side of the desk. And during that process, my co-chair was a woman, Sharon. She's not from a military background in any way. She's an ally with 20 years experience in Barclays. And the deputy that we had at the team was Jacqueline, and she, again, no military experience, no attachment to the military, but saw herself as an ally and an advocate. And the combination of that was a phenomenal group that then allowed the network to grow and help more people and hopefully improve the power of networks. Hope that helps.
I think actually this kind of linking really nicely to the next question we have, and maybe some is kind of lightly touched already, but I will still ask the question to our panelists. What are the other benefits do you find through your formal networks? Can you talk a bit more around your personal experience?
Sure. So my personal experience in the networks has been career changing, quite frankly. So to give you a little bit of context, I joined Tesco Bank. 4 months later, I applied and was given the role of co-chair within the network. Another month from that, I was presenting to the CEO and the exec around inclusion. And then a month after that, I was co-hosting events with the chair of our board. So it's provided me with massive amount of opportunities that I just wouldn't have found in my career otherwise. I'm going to call myself an early career, and I'll milk that for a few years later, as I graduated about 6.5 years ago. And these experiences are just something that I wouldn't have found in my career. It's given me management experience when I may not have had the opportunity in my role to manage projects for people. I'm now doing both as part of the network, so it's really built me up as a person. It's also given me the opportunity to create really meaningful relationships and get to know people from all over the business. So I'm very friendly with Laura, actually. She sits on our committee, and we've had a wonderful experience working together where we wouldn't have known each other otherwise, probably not come across. But it's also given me, the brand new people into the business from all different departments, and actually across a number of different banks as well. We connected as women's networks and got to know people across the industry in Scotland and what they're doing and how I can learn from them and draw from their experiences as well. So in summary, it's been transformative for my career. It has been cited in my end of year reviews. It's been acknowledged and I've been given secondment opportunities. People see what you're doing and trust that if you're putting your energy and effort into a network, that you're going to be able to do that in your core role in your job as well. So yeah, it's made a big difference to me.
I'm going to jump in, fully agree with Florence points and just think that, so I joined the bank in 2019 as an AVP, so Assistant Vice President for anyone not familiar with Barclays. And over the next 4 years, so I picked up, if that's the right term, Director on Friday last week. And then within that time, I've never did formal line management in the bank. But unfortunately for myself, I had to do it in the army, right? But in the bank, I've never did formal line management. So how did I demonstrate leadership qualities through that time? It was by actually talking about PMRG stuff. It's about coordinating, directing, and leading teams within that space. So the networks give you that opportunity to showcase your skills that might not be prevalent within your day job.
Thank you, Rob. So I guess, again, leading on nicely, do you find that you engage with formal networks that complement or contrast those informal networks that you have?
From my point of view, the beauty happens when actually you've got that perfect mix of both. When you're meeting up with groups of people to have conversations about things that unify you, because it gives you that great opener. You're all there for a purpose. You all want to connect and achieve something together, be that just networking and understanding what's happening within your industry, or you're coming together because actually you're passionate about a particular aim or goal. So I think it's wonderful to have a bit of a balance of both, and you can get different things from informal versus formal network.
Yeah, I agree. And when you link it all together, networks create a platform for change. If you embrace it, you know, it energizes what you're going to do, whilst also normalizing things. I don't know about you, but we heard earlier about imposter syndrome. And it won't matter what network you're part of, it'll crop up and somebody will share a story and you'll think, well, I can relate to that. Oh, well, it's not just me. And you can normalize it and then talk about how do you move that forward. And that's true whether you're in a formal and informal. I think the informal helps you develop your skills and then practice it when you go in the formal one. It's almost like an ultra safe, you know, everybody's on the same side and you're all there. And then when you go into your formal networks, you get a chance to practice what you're learning and take forward. So I think there's connectivity between both. And if you can be involved in both, it's hugely advantageous.
Yeah, for me, my formal networks are generally those that I work with, and coming from quite a techie background, that is generally men. So it's in contrast. My involvement in the women's network is very much in contrast to my day-to-day experience, but it's also very complementary. It allows me to find, you know, people that have the same passions, experience as I do, and add upon my work-life experience beyond the network that I have within my team. And the people I come into contact with day to day.
I think of it differently. I wouldn't say I'm a part of any informal networks. I would say networking is the difference. So what I'm doing tonight, networking, and the kind of in that way, meeting different people and seeing different perspectives and having those conversations, they can lead to triggers within your head that then makes you think about things differently and makes you go down a different route. So I take every opportunity I get to be involved with anything, if it's Chartered Banking Institute, if it's SFE, if it's with other banks, whatever it may be, because you don't know who you'll meet. I'm quite a social person, so why not make use of that and find out where those opportunities take you.
I think, like, in terms of from what we heard from the panelists, right, like a lot of us are very fortunate because our organizations have really good supporting networks available. For example, like Lloyds, Tesco Bank, Barclays, we do very much focus on the D&I initiatives, the different pillars and networks. But for the organizations like who don't really have many network like around, what's the kind of advice you would give to the people who work for those organizations?
Find someone and make one. Yeah, so a network is what? A couple of people speaking to each other with a shared mindset and shared desires and goals to potentially to make change, said earlier on. But a network is just people who can relate to things and you can have conversations with, and you can. It depends on the maturity, doesn't it? But to your point, like, no one's going to do it for you, is my view. So you make it.
Yeah, for me, having formal networks in the business was a differentiator on who I wanted to work for. It showed me that they took diversity, equity, and inclusion seriously, which was very important to me. And the fact that they had networks and were broadcasting about them let me know that, you know, they aligned with my beliefs as well. I think, you know, I just echo, you don't have to wait for one to be created, go ahead and do it yourself. I think there's a great example at Tesco Bank. We had two ladies who were very passionate about menopause issues, and they they were part of the Women's Network, but also made a little secondary network that's specifically around menopause. And the work that they did resulted in a change in policy at Tesco Bank. So you don't need to be a huge number of people. You just need to be a few very passionate people to find that community and resource and allyship.
I definitely have to agree, like very much like Jamie and Lauren said, like actually me and Hannah, we joined around a similar time in Barclays 2019 in technology, and at the time we saw there was no women in technology networks in Scotland, and look across the whole office, we were like one of the very few girls around. So we're like, you know what, there's no women in technology network, let's make one ourselves. So that's when Everson took off. We started with only like four or five of us, and it grew pretty quickly, like in the last few years. So I definitely feel that if you don't have one, create one yourself. But also I would say like for networks like the Scottish Member Network, CBI, and you've got other professional networks out there, which like if you are on LinkedIn, you probably see a lot of events are around. So there is not there's ever shortage of the network opportunities. It's really just to throw yourself out there, like, and then try it out and make that every opportunity count. How about our Edinburgh room? What you ladies think?
I think the panel have covered the majority, but most of us are lucky and we work in organisations that have networks set up, and it mostly feeds from your policies and your values and everything like that. But if you haven't, then on LinkedIn, you can find so much, and the people will welcome you in, even if it's just to get you started. And this is where your informal networks come into play, because you can reach out much broader than who you work for and start to understand, right, how do I create a bit of a network? What do I need to do? Who could I invite in just to help me get it started? But it always comes back to that, what's your incentive to do it and your energy to keep it going? Be clear on your purpose. But I would say to everyone, don't shy away from it. If it's important to you, it's important to have a voice on it.
Yeah, and I think about it a little bit like an inverted pyramid. There are things that you might want to explore at an industry level, and there will almost certainly be at least one network that would give you that insight. Then there might be things that you want to explore from a company perspective, and that might even help you to understand what's happening in other organisations within your sector. And then there are those very specific targeted networks that are really around something that's important to you, something that you want to achieve, or something that connects a group of folk together. And I think if you can get the balance right and have a little bit of involvement at all of those levels, then it can be really quite helpful, both from a career point of view and just in terms of your own professional and personal development.
Yeah, I think some really relatable points that have been raised there. I guess kind of everyone's had varying careers on the panel. How has your involvement with networks changed over your careers? And if you maybe joined later in your career, do you wish you'd have joined sooner?
Oh, you always wish, don't you? You always look back and think, wished I'd done this or wished I'd done that. But you make the decisions at the time with the information you've got and the desire you've got. I think particularly, through COVID, networks became more important because you couldn't sort of meet like this and you could be quite isolated. So you built up networks in a different way. And I think what's been pleasing is post-COVID, things have almost had a resurgence. People have realised, I need that physical connection. I want to be in the same room as other people and have that softer conversation as well as the more formal stuff. I think going out with your organisation is really important too. I probably didn't do enough of that when I was younger. I did some of it, but not enough. Whereas now the opportunity is, everything's so small because of this, isn't it? Because of social media, connectivity, everything like that. You can reach out and be involved in things that are much wider. And I would just say, always use it, always go. If you want to be part of networks, just make it part of your monthly activity. What am I going to do? And set yourself some ambition around it.
I think so. My first interaction with the military network would have been August 2019. My first week in internship. You talk about imposter syndrome. There's no more imposter than that. And I get invited to lunch on the Friday, and there was 14 people in the invite, and I assumed that they were all 14 interns, and this is the first time I was going to meet them. Turns out I was the only intern. The rest of them were all people from the network, and that was my first understanding of what that was that existed within there. And so the question is, how has that changed? I kind of made it my mission from that point forwards that wasn't the experience for people coming in. That actually they had a good understanding for what the network was, who the people were, contacts, make things regular, have social things in place that as soon as new people come in, they are immediately invited to. And that may be new people into the bank, or it may be people who choose to be advocates, allies, whatever it may be. And I think that's important. So that's one of my kind of mandates as the co-chair of a group of 120, is to put things in place and facilitate that, to try to make sure that they all know who each other are roughly. It's hard, right? Not everyone, I think in that pyramid explanation, like not everyone's as keen to be involved as others. But facilitate that as much as possible and try to link them all in as much as possible, both virtually and in person. But yeah, I'll always go back to that. That's let's not have that experience, and let's try to make sure everyone is connected as we can make them.
Me, I got involved quite early into my career, but I'm going to say it probably wasn't early enough. There's a huge number of opportunities as a student to get involved in a lot of these professional networks that could really set you up for your career ahead. So I think that reflecting back on my time at uni, I might have tried to join a few more of them, create a wider network of people in the same career as me, coming from the same educational background and with the same aspirations for their career. Because as said, it's a small world, and you know, you're going to run into people you know, and creating meaningful relationships with people that are doing the same thing as you is only going to benefit you. So yeah, start early as possible would be my recommendation.
I think like that's not the microphone now. I think like everybody will have the names of the panelists from today, Laura, myself, and some other people you might be interested to find us on LinkedIn and follow the institute, Chartered Banker Institute, SMN, like accounts, and then see the networks that events that are available and take part of that. I think like overall, like all our panelists said, really good advice, really good experience sharing, but it's all down to ourselves as an individual, how far we want to push ourselves out there. And then sometimes people might find a bit overwhelming with the number of the events and networks are going on. And there's actually no shame to take a step back to really reassess, like, what am I looking for from this network? What is the value I can bring to it? I mean, like, very recently, sadly, I stepped away from CBI's committee because like, I just feel like my availability becomes so limited. But again, that experience is something I can definitely take away with me, leverage within my own Barclays network. So it's up to you how far you want to go, how much you want to get involved, but really try to maximize that opportunity when you are part of that. I think that concludes to the question part with our panelists. So I can see there are a couple questions on the call, but first of all, do we have any questions from the audience in the room? We got couples. Here we go.
Thank you, Joe. Hi folks, I'm Rory McIntyre. I chair the Scotland Members Network of the Chartered Banker Institute, and firstly, thank you so much to all people who have put this event on for us this evening. It's fantastic use of amazing hybrid technology that we have availability of these days. My question has kind of been covered a little bit, and it's not something I'm expecting a black and white answer, but something that I'm seeing in my day job working on workforce planning software at NatWest is that we have this massive influx these days of people, particularly in technology roles. So it's fantastic to hear the panel talking about how they've leveraged networks in tech roles. It's something that Laura and I did a couple of years ago. We're speaking to some graduate cohorts within NatWest of tech grads to effectively convince them that they're bankers and actually that financial services industry networks are within their interests. Kat mentioned it in terms of that inverted pyramid. You know, you have those industry-wide networks at the top. But how do we break down barriers as our industry starts to change to convince people that the overall industry is theirs as much as it is someone who works in a contact centre or somewhere else in the industry, to make sure that we can leverage the networks for their benefits as well?
So I look at it the way I look at my day job, right? So I work in operational risk. So typically I give the business a hard time, if I'm being honest. So that's only doable if I can explain the common purpose. There's a reason why I'm doing that. So to me, I think it's incumbent on everyone to explain what is the common purpose that we have as, if you're saying financial services or banking. So we all are a collective that make up that whole. So we have to explain that common purpose and why they are included within that. And then what are the benefits by us all being included within that. And Dave came along to a networking event in January, and Dave came along to, and I made that point as the institute, as SFE, whatever it may be, SMN, sorry. So we need to be able to articulate what the benefits are of being members, and we also need to identify, in my opinion, what the common purpose for everyone is, so we can all succeed together. That's my view. I for my entire time serving, maintained a home in Glasgow. I was always intending to resettle in Glasgow. Just so happened that Barclays put this building up for me, so I got to move into it, so it's perfect timing for me. I intend to have the next 30-40 years in financial services in Glasgow, so I'm really passionate about making that industry thrive, so I get to thrive, let's be honest. Right, so I think if we are interested in that, totally am, but we have to be able to sell that. Sales.
And I think something that ties really nicely is, again, the International Women's Day theme of inspiring inclusion. It's through that inspiration, it's through, you know, having those open doors that, you know, people will come to you naturally if they relate to your cause. So yeah, keep at it, Rory. But I'll cover a question that we've got online. Again, if there's any further questions, please do put them in the Q&A box, or again, raise your hand like Rory did. So given today's multiple channels for networking exemplified by those joining tonight's call, is that a help or a hindrance to networking? I.e., is there a fear of raising one's profile by posting on LinkedIn in case it receives few likes? There's multiple channels, help or hindrance. Sorry, Lauren, go.
I mean, it's a tricky one. I think behaviour that's embedded in all networking is being brave. You don't really get anywhere without being brave. So it's a help because it's, you know, massive the number of people that you reach, your thoughts and your message and whatever you want to share. It's sometimes tricky organising events with the tech, especially in hybrid situations. So in that, if you hit me up at one of our events, I'd definitely say hybrid is a hindrance. But there's also, you know, the benefits to being in person as well, which is making those face-to-face connections. I think it's much easier to engage with people when you're not looking at them through a screen. So I think there's benefits in them all, depending on the context that you frame that question. It will change my answer. But yeah, I would recommend being brave and putting yourself out there, because there's no gain without risk, I guess.
Laura, was that question about posting on LinkedIn as well? Is that?
Yeah, so is it yeah, the multiple channels, is it a help or hindrance, i.e. fear of raising one's profile by posting on LinkedIn in case it receives few likes?
Okay, so I think Laura, I don't tend to take this. So I think putting yourself online, just not being too fussed. If people don't like it or do like it, that's what it is. And I appreciate that's very easy to say in this day and age where endorphin hits through likes and so on. But if there's something you're passionate about, you put it out there and see what happens. There's always going to be haters. That's life.
To be an advantage because you've got more channels in which you can reach people. And I think even if you're posting it on LinkedIn, you're posting it for a reason, you want to share it. Then it's up to the receivers whether they like it, whether they do something with it, but you've been open with that channel of communication. I think if we were to strip it all back and say we only had face-to-face networks, we'd feel really constrained now, and we would miss the power of that multi-channel. And if you think of tonight, people being able to do face-to-face, people being able to dial in, come in on video, or listen to a recording afterwards. That's huge because the reach is much greater. And that's the way we'll keep it sustainable and keep it moving forward.
100%. And it enables, again, communities to be connected all over the world. Like our multicultural network, I have learned so much about so many different cultures and places just by having Yammer or whatever you've got in your organizations, just by having those different channels to network and find out more.
I did one, it would be probably 2 or 3 years ago, and it was hosted by DC Thompson, the printers in Dundee. And we were connected to America and all over the world, and we were learning and interacting on disability. And it was so powerful. It was a network you would never, ever have reached or been part of. So I think the power of that reach and the inclusivity that it encourages is huge.
Thanks. That's all the questions online for the moment. Again, please keep posting. But is there any more in Glasgow?
We got quite a few of them in Glasgow, so keep that going.
Hi, I'm good. I also like the utilisation of the Be Brave Tesco Bank value there, and that increases your outside business. I'm an associate analyst for Tesco Bank. So my wee question is more of probably a personal one. Quite a lot of people probably have it. I have had a wee one in the past 2 years, and it's just to see how any advice on how you can juggle networking with the constraints of having small children who you also want to do the best for them, so you don't want your career to take a backseat. You want to plough on, be as successful as you can be, help be a value member to your team, your business, but also most networking events are in the evening, and that is prime time for little ones to be in bed. So just to see if there's any advice on that, really.
I'll try my best, right? So I'm very, very fortunate. So my wife supports me by allowing me to do it, if I'm being honest, and takes up the majority of the burden when it comes to that. I think she accepts that because she knows that I wouldn't have got a job otherwise. I'm not particularly bright. Don't have many skills, but I can network. So I think what was fortunate was, and I was leaving the army, moving house, and I had a baby in the way. So my second child was due came in New Year's Eve, so that was a month after I secured the role in here. So it was tense, but I've never networked like that in my life, and I haven't since, if I'm being honest, because everything was about that to try and get a role, and that was during the day and in the evening, if I'm being honest, and I've kind of continued that. But the reality is, I would say I do sacrifice for that. I do think time is finite. You've got to focus, in my opinion. Your efforts, your time, it's valuable, isn't it? I want to see my little girl and my little boy more often, but I appreciate that I also want to continue my career and drive that forward. I see the value in networking, so I will focus on the things which I think I'll get the most from, that I can most contribute towards, and will give me the best output. If you can do that and you're passionate about it, it doesn't feel like a burden. That's how I find it. I wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't feel that way, I guess. So if I try to not be myself and force myself into a different network or a different activity, it would feel a burden, and I just probably wouldn't do it. So it's that, but I would say the big one is probably having a good support network. And it's not just my wife, it's my in-laws and stuff as well, who pick up that burden.
Can I borrow your microphone, please?
I'll chip in a wee bit from a different angle. So I've got 2 kids myself. And when my first daughter was born, I was in a consulting firm, one of the big 4 consulting firm. And as some of you know, in consultancy, the important part is network. So when my daughter was 1 month old, I was called in. I need to attend this network event in Edinburgh, and I live in Paisley. So it's not the easiest thing for me to leave a 1 month old baby. I was breastfeeding at the time as well to go to the network. And it was very daunting. But like, I think it's that sort of going is very daunting. But once I was there, I actually quite enjoy it because it feels like, you know what, like selfishly speaking, I was me first as being Zhou, and then I was being a mom. And it's nice to take myself away from that environment, the constantly nappy changing and feeding and no sleeping, to get back to my self-esteem, confident zone. So that's the first thing. I think sometimes take yourself out of that environment is like a little reward to all the hard work you spend on the kids. And then when I go home, it's the quality of the time more than the quantity. But the other element I want to talk about is, I think overall we need to be more inclusive when we organizing events like this. And when I say inclusive, it's not just the gender inclusive, like a multi-diverse, it's talking about family inclusive as well. So in Barclays, we've got Family Network, who are brilliant organizing events for kids to come into our office to take part of the networking event. So for example, we did something like Christmas market, where like all the networks, like Jamie's network, my network, like all the network, they are invited, their kids are invited coming in. There are face painters, there are mini zoos, there's manicure, pedicure for the kids, hairdos and stuff like that. But it's really get the kids going as well as get the parents a chance to network without feel the guilt, oh, I have to leave them during Christmas time, like at home. That's just one of the example. We do a lot of other things like that. So I think like as people are more and more adaptive in terms of the hybrid model and that sharing responsibility of childcare because of COVID, then this is probably one of the trends we will see more industry players are start moving to when they're organizing events. They being mindful how they be able to including the people who are working parents and working parents, because like Jamie lucky, Jamie's got in-laws, I don't have in-laws. Maybe I'm lucky in that aspect. But like I basically I've got no childcare apart from me and the husband, that's all. So I think like in order to encourage people like myself to take more networking activities, I am hoping more industry players and networks out there can start thinking in that angle.
Just I'm going to jump on that for a second. So I didn't even think about it. So that's a really good point. So common purpose tied to that point I mentioned earlier. So I explained the common purpose to the family, and like my kids have both came to the last 2 Christmas parties. The Santa is the best Santa they can get, right? So we don't pay for it, so it's phenomenal. With the Halloween parties, the Christmas parties, you make it a family affair, and they get to see, because that, like, I'm not going to pretend they don't say things to me that they don't see you enough. But when you get to bring them in and show them where you work and stuff, then it creates a better bond, and you can hopefully try to articulate like this is where dad goes and this is why he goes. So that's what I try to do.
So I don't have kids, so you can tell me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I think it'd be really valuable to let your networks know that this is something that you're struggling with. They can't change if they don't know. So, you know, make sure you communicate that back, that that's something that is a struggle for you. I think lean on other networks that are parents and carers. So we have parents and carers at Tesco Bank, and they're fantastic. They do stuff with kids. They run events during the day. So maybe, you know, speak to your.
I just joined that one. I saw that one.
It's a good one, Christine's great. So yeah, I'd highly recommend just finding that record and working out how they manage it. But yeah, definitely feed it back to us, because if you feel like you're underserviced and that's a challenge you've got in your home life, like these are inclusion networks, we want to be inclusive.
100%. And with COVID, that kind of personal life and professional life has blurred so much that, you know, if kids came along, we probably won't notice a difference these days. Please bring your dogs, bring your kids, like it's part of use, and it automatically gives you something that's relatable to so many people. There are so many working mums these days that, yeah, it gives you a natural talking point.
I think inclusion networks generally, though, if you think it might be childcare, it might be you've got carer responsibilities, it stretches much broader now. I mean, speaking from what we do in TSB, because I run the branch network, a lot of things are held during the day, which then you get the branch team saying, well, we can't join because we've got customers, and so you make a variety of options. But I think for individuals, it's understanding what are the perimeters you can operate in, what's your barriers, and what choices have you got, and even buddying up with someone else that's part of that network. So if you can't go, you're still, you know, got a communication channel there. But I have to admit, we've got a number of things running, and we've got them in the evening, we've got them during training time, we've got them over lunchtime. So I think we're all trying to be as flexible as we can be, but keep that feedback coming.
Networking doesn't have to be about popping along to formal, coordinated, organised events as well. I've definitely had periods in my life where, for me, networking has just been about reaching out to an old colleague and just asking for a quick chat about what's happening within the organisation, checking in with them, just making those connections. I think if you replace the word networking with connection, suddenly it feels actually a lot more achievable, particularly if you are going through that phase in your life where, you know, you've got a few things that you need to work around.
Yeah. And they're your priorities for a little while, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I think we've got time for one more question over there, Zhou.
Oh, I'm in Glasgow.
Hi, my name is Caitlin. I lead a couple of teams in payment investigations, and I've just recently joined the Win Scotland committee. My question's kind of more around, we spoke a lot about like kind of expanding our network and like other people, but not taking away from the fact that we're here because of International Women's Day and want to inspire inclusion, and our networks and employee resource groups are a massive part of what make companies a great place to work and bringing your whole self to work. Probably this question to end on is, what has been a point in your career where the network that you have been a part of, whether that be an inclusion network or your wider network, has been pivotal to, you know, your success, or a personal moment where your network has really been a great support?
I've probably got quite a good example for that. So I was recently offered a secondment opportunity to, you know, a higher grade, a bigger role. And when they were talking about why I was chosen to get that secondment opportunity, they said, well, you've built those established, you've built those relationships with board and exec through the network. You know, we've seen your ability to deliver against, you know, outcomes. We've seen your ability to manage other people. So that was a very easy draw for me, that the work that I did in the networks resulted into career progression. But I'd probably also say this one as well. So I've never sat in a panel, I've never been asked to come and speak to other people about my experiences. And you know, that's a big opportunity as well. I take a lot of value in being able to share my story and you know, what I've learned through the activities that I've taken on and what I've done. So yeah, it's provided lots of different opportunities for me that are very easy for me to measure the value of networks and the milestones that it's afforded me.
So for myself, I went through the annual promotion within Risk in December, and many of my questions I answered were based on what I did within the network. As I said before, I've not had the opportunity to lead teams within Barclays formally, but by what I did with the network, I directed 120 people, so that helps.
Well, thank you so much. Firstly, thanks to all our amazing panelists for those insights, the fabulous examples of how we can inspire inclusion, and how, you know, the power of networks have really helped all of us, I think, in our careers. after the event, there'll be a feedback form. So if you have enjoyed it or if you haven't, please do let us know, as well as the reasons for that. The more feedback we get, so that we can improve these events, the absolute better. For anyone attending in person, there will be refreshments. So again, Zhou will point you in the right direction. Make sure you don't get lost.
Soft drink.
100%. And please do make sure you check out the Chartered Bankers Institute website, as well as our LinkedIn for any upcoming events, and be sure to share with your networks as well. But yes, thank you again, everyone, for attending, and hope to see you at an event soon. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura, and thank you for the ladies from the Edinburgh panel as well. I have to say that this is one of the things that me and Rory been talking about for a long time. Like the only reason I seconded to CPI is so that we can deliver a hybrid event between Edinburgh and Glasgow. So as me, I feel so like that's my dream come true. So you are all part of that very important milestone for this very first hybrid event between Glasgow and Edinburgh, and all the best to CPI, SMN in terms of the future events, and please follow all of those fantastic networks on LinkedIn and benefit from it. All right, thank you.